Hey guys, so today's video is going to be about squares, square roots, and perfect squares. Now, what is a square? So if I have a number, say 3, then if we have just 3, 3 can also be written as 3 times 1. So to write this in the exponent form, this would be 3 to the power of 1. So now you're asking me, wait, I'm confused. How did the 1 go from here to the exponent? Let's look at a few more examples. So if I have 3 times itself, then what exactly is happening here? We have 3 multiplied by itself 2 times. So there's 1 3 here and another 3 here. So this could be written as 3 to the 2. If I have 3 times 3 times 3, 3 multiplied by itself 3 times, then this could be written as 3 to the power of 3. So I think you can see a pattern now. When there's 1 3, our exponent becomes 1. When there's 2 3s, our exponent becomes 2. When there's 3 3s, our exponent becomes 3. So this is the basic idea of exponents. Now, when we're talking about squares, what we're really concentrating on is this middle section here. Squares is when you multiply a number by itself 2 times. So here that number is 3, but the number doesn't have to be 3. It can be, say, 4. And we know that this can also be written as 4 to the 2. And we know that this gives us 16. And then it can be anything. It can be 200 times 200. It can be 1.76 times 1.76. It doesn't matter what the number is. It could be anything. So this would just be 200 squared. This would be 1.76 squared. So it really doesn't matter. You can even square a fraction if you want. I can say 3 over 4 squared. So that would just be 3 over 4 times 3 over 4. And using the multiplication of fractions, we know that this is 9 over 16. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to be a whole number. So when we're talking about squares, what we're really saying is any number n times that number. It's again, so it's the same number. That's why we use n, not a different letter x and y. It's n times that same number n squared. So this is the idea of squares. Now, what if we went from, say, I gave you 9, and I asked you what number n times what number n gives me that 9. So we would take the square root of n. This symbol, that symbol means square root. So the square root of 9 would be, we know that because 9 is a fairly basic number, we know that it's 3 times 3. But what if I gave you a more complex number, say 144? Now this you probably don't know off the top of your head. Maybe after some practice you will, but for now, we don't really know what 144, the square root of 144 is. So if we take the square root of 144, you could punch this into your calculator or you could solve by factoring, but then you'd know that 12 times 12 gives you 144. So we say that the square root of 144 is 12. The square root of 9 is 3. So going in the reverse would be square root. So a quick review of what we did. If I gave you 3, then 3 times 3 is 3 squared. And this gives me 9. This is squaring a number by itself twice, squaring a number. And to go in the reverse order, if I gave you 9, then the square root of 9 is 3. So this is the idea of squares and square root. Now, what if there was a sorry about that. what if I gave you a negative number? Say negative 3. Well, I think I'm using 3 a lot. Let's switch that. Negative, let's say negative 10. Yeah, so what would the square of negative 10 be? Do you think you can square it? Do you not? Think about it. Take a minute and think about it. Pause the video if you need to. Think about it. What would the square of negative 10 be? Okay, let's see what you got. Now, negative 10, when we say square, it's the number by itself, right? So for negative 10, it's going to be negative 10 times negative 10. So a negative times a negative gives you a positive, and that would be positive 100. So let's try it with another number, negative 2, easy. So negative 2 squared is going to be negative 2 times negative 2, and that's going to give me positive 4. So I think you see the pattern. It's negative 10 squared, negative 10 times negative 10, 100. So I think you see a pattern here. A negative number times, a negative number squared is that negative number times that negative number. That's going to give me a positive number. So, well, it's not, and it's going to give me some positive number x. Okay? So that would be the idea of squaring. So you can square a negative number. Now, let's look at something. Let's look at something called a perfect square. So I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, so if you had the same 10, right? What if we had to take the square root of 10? Now, don't get confused. Previously we did 10 times 10, which is, so we did this 10 square of 10, but here the square root of 10, right? What is the square root of 10? So what number squared gives us 10? Now, 3 squared we know is 9. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. So we don't have a whole number between 3 and 4, which is going to give us 10, right? So we say that 10 is not a perfect square. 10 is not a perfect square. But what if I had 25? So what number times that number and squared gives me 25? And we do get a whole number. We get 5 times 5 gives me 25. And since 5 is a whole number, we can say that 25 is a perfect square. So when you have n squared, if that n is a whole number, then you get a perfect square. So perfect squares would be 1 times 1, 4, 2 times 2, 9, which is 3 squared, 16, which is 4 squared, 25, which is 5 squared, 36, which is 6 squared, and so on. So you have a lot of perfect squares, and knowing these might be helpful because then when you have them in problems, you can substitute and solve easily. So this is the idea of squares, square roots, and perfect squares. Thank you.